everyone, welcome to this class. So we're going to paint this apple. So I'm really excited about it. This is for beginners and I want you to get familiar with the technique called wet on wet. I know this looks harder than it is, but it really is not, as long as you focus on your paper on that area where you're adding colors. We're going to wet the apple and then apply colors wet on wet. I'm going to explain everything as we go through this class. We're going to start with this apple here. So it's important to understand the undertones. So for example, like when you look at the reference image, we have technically a red apple, right? This side is green. But when you look at the reference, just the reference, you see there's yellow undertone. So underneath, like all that, when you stripe all these reds out, like off the skin of the apple, you'll start seeing yellows in there, maybe orange. Let's talk about orange. How is the orange created? It's by a mix of red with yellow. So when you mix red with yellow, you create a shade of orange. Let's talk about green. How do you create green? By mixing blue with yellow, you create a shade of green. That's where we're going to start with yellows here, and here. Now for the highlights, a lot of times like you can add just a little bit of blue, for example. And I did add a little bit of like phthalo blue with quinacridone red. For the reds, it's totally up to you what reds you're going to use for the apple. I prefer to go with like a cleaner red, which is pearl red, and that's a primary red color according to Holbein's color chart. And then my favorite red is actually quinacridone red, so I want to use those two. And then to make some areas darker, that's when I'm going to add phthalo blue over here where we have the green. Before you begin painting, actually I would like you to get familiar with your colors, and the easiest way to do that is by creating color swatches. So the first thing we need to do is wet the apple, and then we're going to apply these colors wet on wet. So we have the highlight here. So I have the softer brush. This is a quill. It's my songbird line of quills. So they're not too bulky. But you want to have actually a softer brush, unless you're looking to have lots of control, then you grab a stiffer brush. I'm going to start with that undertone that I was mentioning. So the phthalo blue with a little bit of, tiny bit of quin red. Right there, it's a little cleaner. And I just want a little bit of it. So I need to wipe my brush a little on a towel so I don't have too much of that blue. And it's just over here where I kind of feel that blue tone, maybe a little more. But at this point, like if I have some yellow that's mixed up with red, it's not going to bother me because I do have all these reds anyway in the painting or in the picture. And I'm going to go right here because I feel a little bit of yellow there too. However, this is a lot of like, seems more like bluish. I will still maybe add blue later. And then here over the edge, a new shade. I'm not trying to do that. I just want like a separation of colors, because when you don't mix these colors correctly, then you will be able to see some separation of colors. Here I grabbed a little more of the quin red. So heavy cream-like ratio of that quin red and closer to that edge. And then over here, just kind of pulling the paint. Might be easier to work with a smaller brush, just keep that in mind. If you're also using a larger brush. Quills always like have like, it sounds like, okay, this is like a size 2, which if it was a round brush, it would be like a 10, right? But with quills, it's a little different. And here, very gently applying that color and using the tip of my brush around 8, my other softer brush, and go over here. So you need to clean your brush, wipe it very well on a towel. It's just a damp brush, and you can kind of pull the paint a little bit and push it a tiny bit towards that highlight in the middle there. Van Dyke brown is really diluted, not diluted with water, it's very dry. So I'm trying to grab this chunk, and it's just with the tip of my brush, and it's heavy cream-like ratio. And here, because I'm adding this heavy cream-like ratio, I didn't dilute it with water. it's really nice now, right? Because it's still wet on wet. So if you want to lift colors, if you do, I suggest to just add those little dots that you can see on the apple. In this case, you would either grab a liner or rigger brush, or a small size stiffer brush like this one, the size 2 Nova Synthetics by Da Vinci. I'll show you what you can do. You clean this brush, wipe it very well on a towel, very well, and then you go like in a circle just to create like a tiny bloom. You can do this with a rigger brush too. If you just touch, I'm going to use actually a stiffer brush. We're going to start with like undertones. So let's go for this part here. Undertones. So when you look at a branch, do you see any blue in there? As I am wetting, I'm going to keep talking to you about it. And on top of that, that's when I add heavy cream-like ratio of burnt sienna. So I'm grabbing some more burnt sienna. You can add some quin red. We can see a little bit of that quin red. So I just grabbed quin red. And before this is dry, you want to apply these. So that's it for the apple painting. And of course, you can make it 10 times more detailed. You can add another layer. You can make it more realistic. Yes, you can do all of this, but it's important to really focus on that first layer, because it's really, I think it's more satisfying when you can finish something like this with one layer and give that effect already. And everything comes down to light and shadows. So thank you so much for your time, and I really hope you enjoyed this class.